time. We are on Daf Memchet Amud Aleph. We are up to the Mishnah involving Nisuch Hamayim. Recall that the Mishnah, all the way at the beginning of Lulav Rava, that was telling us about different things that take place over different numbers of days, told us that there is going to be a Nisuch Hamayim that transpires every single day of the holiday of Sukkot. Mem Bet Amud Bet 42b. So just to review, Lulav Rava, Shisha V'Shiva, depending on which day is Shabbos. Hahal V'Asimcha Shmona, including Shmini Atzeret, 42b. Sukka V'Nisuch Hamayim Shiv'ah, 7 days for those two mitzvahs. And then the Chalil, Chamisha V'Shisha, we'll get to that. That's the playing of the music of Simcha Beit Shoeva. And then the Mishnah already here was Lulav Shiva Ketzad. How do we get to Lulav Shiva? Explanation, right, etc. And each of the Mishnayot was going through each of the different pieces of the Mishnah, as is unpacking the Mishnah. Sometimes the Mishnah falls to a next Mishnah. Sometimes the Mishnah at the beginning of a parak is like a title Mishnah, and then unpacking the Mishnah in the Mishnah. So that's what we have here on 48a, the bottom of the page. Nisuch Hamayim Ketzad. How did Nisuch Hamayim work? What did it involve? So it was a tzluchit shel zav mechazaket shlosha lugin hayimamale min hashiloach. They would fill up the water into a golden flask of some kind. They would draw the water from the shiloach. Where is the shiloach? If you were zocha ever to do the Chizkiyahu's tunnel in Yerushalayim, at the end of it is the Silwam pool, aka Mei HaShiloach. That area, Silwam, what they call, right, is actually the Shiloach. That's what it is. And that's the water they would use, and they would bring it up from there, draw it there, and bring it up. Why? It had to be Mei Ma'ayan. Had to actually be something that came from a spring. And that's why Rashi says, Mayan hu samuch Yerushalayim. So most of us around this table, or even on the Zoom, we were zocha to walk, where even Rashi was just writing what he knew, what he heard. There's such a place. We were zocha. If we weren't yet zocha, we could always figure out a way to go there. Amazing, astounding to see.
By the way, the Ma'ayan is called Hagichon.
Yeah, the Ma'ayan itself is called the Gichon.
And Chizkiyahu is a minhara, and the brecha is where it moved it into the inside Ir David, because Hagichon was outside the wall.
Thank you. Right. So the Gichon spring took it and brought it, and you could get it there. Right. So
but the
Ma'ayan itself, the Gichon spring is the name of it. Right. That's true. The Ma'ayan is the Gichon, but it flows. It's called the Mei HaShiloach because the area where we pick it up. So that's described here. That's the Mei HaShiloach. Higiul Shar Hamayim. When they would get to the gate of the water, there's a special gate which is pretty close to the Mizbeach, Hachitzon. They would blow the shofar. Taku v'hariu v'taku. It make sounds, trua tkiya, right? And then they would bring the water in. Ala b'kevesh, they would go up the ramp. Upanali smolo. The person was going up the ramp, just to give you the orientation. I'll remind you each time. It should be for some of us second nature. When you're standing at the Kotel HaMa'aravi, you're at the western wall of the Temple Mount. Just above was where the building of the Beit HaMikdash stood, not exactly above, straight ahead, but a little off to the side. Because according to many, that's exactly where the Golden Dome is today. By the way, it is somewhat in dispute, but let's say, for argument's sake, most seem to hold it's there, where the Dome of the Rock is situated presently. So that was the back of the building. The front of the building was, you would be facing from standing in the east, facing west. When you're at the Kotel, facing the Kotel, you're standing facing east. That's why the sun always rises, comes over the top of the Kotel, because you're standing at the western wall. It's the western flank of the Temple Mount. The Mizbeach was on a north-south axis. The bottom of the ramp was on the south, and the top, obviously, in the north. And the top of the ramp then was the Mizbeach itself. The Mizbeach HaChitzon, we saw this in Yuma, we saw diagrams, we looked at it in depth. Of course, it's standing outside and in front of the building known as the Heichal of the Beit HaMikdash itself. It's part of a compound that generally is referred to as the Beit HaMikdash. So in the area known as the Azara, that's where the Avoda took place. That's where they would bring the water to, and they'd go up the ramp and turn to the left i.e., the Kohen would go up the ramp and turn west, due west. Follow? And if you were at the Kotel, or rather, if you were at the steps, going down the steps to the Kotel from the old city, when you could look out. I was there last Sunday, Baruch Hashem. So you're looking out, you could see you could see the top of the Temple Mount. You would not see much because there's walls of the Beit HaMikdash. But that's when you would look at it, you could just behind the on the other side of what is the Beit HaMikdash building would be where the ramp is. You probably couldn't see the person from those steps. I doubt it. It's not really high enough with the walls surrounding it, but that's the general gist of it. And in fact, the Shar Hamayim is on the southern wall of, not of the Temple Mount, but of the Beit HaMikdash compound, right? When we talk about the southern wall excavations, that's all Temple Mount. That's not Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash is not standing now. There is, by the by, there are pictures some people have put out of what we think is the contour of the line of the soreg, of the barrier to prevent non-Jews from going past a certain point, just so like the narrow little lip of the ledge that's left from it, and we have the inscription. I'm on the tangent. I'll mention there is an inscription in Greek saying, Gentiles may not pass this point, and it's in the one of them is in the museum in Istanbul. The Ottomans were there for 400 years, so they took stuff home. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that's the history lesson. That's the orientation to figure it out. He would turn to the left. Shnei Sfalim shel Kesef hayusham. There were two silver bowls on the top southwestern corner of the Mizbeach. Rabbi Yehuda Omer shel Sid hayu. They were actually made out of some kind of plaster. Ela shayu mushchar pnei mipnei hayayin. They were blackened and they looked almost silver, really black because of they looked like tarnished silver because of the wine that was poured thereof. Menukavin, they had holes in them. Kimin shnei chotamin dakin, like two nostrils, like they looked like a nose. Yeah. What? They're two bowls. A bowl. B-O-W-L. Bowl, like a Super Bowl. A bowl. Two bowls. Yeah.
It's a bowl. Okay. No, thank you. I'm thinking, how it's about a Zara. There's bowl. I thought you said there's two.
Okay. You knew eventually it was going to be a fair language between the Canadian and the Chicagoan. These are not bulls, which would be like an egel, chalila. It is a bowl, like a soup bowl, thank you, or a cereal bowl, or a Nisuch Hamayim, Nisuch Hayayin bowl. So that's what there were two of those. Okay, and God, we cleared that up. And of course, it's more confusing, of course, because then I said they have nostrils. So it's like, well, what are you talking about? Right. So there's two slits, two holes in them. Rashi and Tosfot disagree what those are. We'll see that in just a minute. They're both thin slits that are there, but one of them, echad me'uve ve'echad dak. One of them is a thicker looking hole than the other, which is more narrow, let's say. So the two liquids, the water and the wine that were going to be poured at the same time, would finish at the same time when they would be poured in. We'll come back to this further along in the Gemara. Okay, explain it more. Now, Ma'aravo shel mayim, Mizracha shel yayin. Of the two bowls, the bowls were on an east-west axis. Again, you have to envision it. Goes up the ramp from the south to the north, and from the south side to going toward the north, gets to the top, turns left, which is totally against what would normally happen. Normally for a korban, it always turn to the right, which we'll come to momentarily, but why that is. But turn to the left, and they're facing the individual at the corner of the southwest corner of the Mizbeach are two of these sfalim. They're receptacles to catch and the one that's more to the west is the mayim, and the one more to the east of the yayin. So the one closer to him is the one for the wine. There was a wine libation, yayin nesach, every single day in the korban tamid shel shachar. On Sukkot, there was also a nisuch hamayim every single day in the tamid shel shachar. So the two liquids were poured essentially at the same time. The one for the water was a little closer to the building of the Beit HaMikdash, again, still on the Mizbech, but it was one closer to him, one farther from him. So Rabbi Yehuda, Ira, Shel Yayin, no, I messed up. Mizracho Shel Yayin, period. Ira Shel Mayim L'toch Shel Yayin, V'Shel Yayin L'toch Shel Mayim, Yatsa. If the person, the Kohen pouring it, made a mistake, he poured into the closer one, he did the water, and the farther one he did the wine, he mixed it up, it's still Yotze. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Belog Hayimanasech Kol Shmona, he thinks that actually it was a log, not Shlosha Lugin, but a log, right? So Shlosha Lugin, another way of saying it is Ruvi'i Tahin, but he thinks it's a log that would be poured, and it was all 8 days. He disagrees with our Mishnah from 42b that said it was 7 days of pouring. He thinks 8. You can make the case for Rabbi Yehuda very simply. Yom Hashmini Chagat Seret Hazeh. So why wouldn't you pour the water? Yeah. V'lo Menasech Omer, the one who was doing the pouring, they would say, Omerlo, they would say to that individual, Hagba Yadcha, raise up your hand to show us that you are actually properly pouring it into the right receptacle. Shapam Echad. Nasach echad al gabe raglav. Once upon a time, one of the Kohanim poured the water deliberately on his own legs. Urgamuhu kol ha'am be'etrogehen, and everyone pelted him with their etrogim. It was a tzduki. Tzdukim had at certain times control things that happen in the mikdash. How did you know who a tzduki was? They didn't always wear a badge saying I'm a tzduki. They were covert about it until they got into the position. And it was challenging to depose them. So the Tzdukim did not believe in Nisuch Hamayim, which the Gemara tells us in several places in Masechet Sukka, is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. In the Gemara in Tanit, I'll give you just a little sidebar here, but it is germane. The Gemara in Tanit on Daf Bet Amud Bet has Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera telling us that actually you could derive Nisuch Hamayim from the words of the Korbanot of Sukkot, because on day 2, day 6 and day 7, I think those are the 3, 2, 6, and 7, there's an extra letter. All of the days have V'niska, Nun, Samach, Chaf, Hey, but the second day, it does not look like that, right? The second day is V'niske Hem. The 6th day has Unisacheha, extra Yud. And the 7th day ends with, instead of Kamishpat, Kimishpatam. Spelling Mem Yud Mem, extra letter Mem Yud Mem. Yehuda Matera says this is a remez to Nisuch Hamayim, and it's interesting because you would think then how is it halacha Moshe Misinai? The answer is first it was halacha Moshe Misinai. Yehuda Matera, he wanted to darshan that the Mem Yud Mem was significant, that the fact that these extra letters like a word search, lahavdol, a holy word search, and he found a remez in the Torah to Nisuch Hamayim, which is interesting. Because generally, halacha Moshe Misinai, the point is it does not have roots in Torah Shebichtav. So, and in several places, the Gemara goes out of its way to remind us Nisuch Hamayim is one of the halacha Moshe Misinai. You believe it because it's part of the Masorah, and that's it. And this Kohen was a tzeduki. He believed in kahuna. He believed in the avodah and the mikdash. He didn't care for anything that the Chachamim had to say. So the whole institution of Nisuch Hamayim was itself an affirmation of Torah Shabbal Peh. By the by, when we get there, you'll remember that I said it now. That's why there's such a big tzimis, one of the reasons, big tzimis, about the Simcha Beit Shoeva. Everyone's very excited. They're blowing the show, and that's according to some of the Rishonim and Achronim, that's why they're blowing the shofar. When they bring the water in, they blow the shofar. Make a big to-do. This is halacha Moshe Misinai, and that's why we do it.
But it's also the concept of the nidonim al hamayim.
B'chag nidonim al hamayim. Right, exactly. We're judged regarding water. Yeah, for sure. 2 halacha, by the way, learned from the fact that they use the etrogim to pelt him with. Number 1, when are they holding the etrogim in their hand? After they said Hallel, Shachari time. So that's when they pelted him. Because that was the time of the Nisuch. That's how you know, that's what some of the Rishonim say, that's how you know that the Nisuch Hamayim transpired when? During the Tamid Shel Shachar, not during the one Shel Ben Harbayim. Number 1. Number 2, I I think it was the Rav. I think it's in the Rav Rishum Yeshur and Hagrid. Not 100% sure if that's where I saw it, but I think it was the Rav who said, why do they pelt him with etrogim? Because how do you know what an etrog looks like? Allah Moshe Sinai. So they pelted him with it, saying, you know, even the biggest Saduki runs around with the lulav and etrog to look like everybody else, including an etrog. That the Rambam writes, this is like Damal Pershim Mishnayot. It's one of the things that how do you know what an etrog looks like? Ultimately, like the answer is because he saw what Zaidi did and what his Zaidi did. That's what we got. So they said, you don't believe in the Nisuch Hamayim? Do you believe in the etrog? Here you go. Yeah. So it's interesting. Okay. He died, by the way, according to the way it's described, is that there were rocks mixed in with the etrogim, but they wanted to hide away the rocks piece of it. But he was actually pelted with rocks as well.
Right.
Last year's etrog, right? Everyone brought the last year's etrog case that would happen, and they pulled it out of their pockets, and that was it. I listen. I'm just telling you what we have. Okay, that's what it is. And if you look at Rashi, Shanira Shetitain Hamayim Basefel, Lefishat Tzdukin Ein Modim B'Nisach Hamayim Shepam Achat Nisech Tzduki Echad Et Hamayim Al Raglav, poured it on his legs. Okay, so the Gemara here continues. Kimaseu b'chol kach maseu b'Shabbat, as he did it on weekdays, regular Yom Tov, so too if it fell out on Shabbat. El Shahayim Emale Me'erev Shabbat Chavit Shel Zahav, they would fill a barrel of gold from before Shabbat, she'ena mekudashat, which was not one of the clay sharet. It was just a stam, a golden vessel, and umenicha belishka, they would put it into a particular area, a closed-off area. Nishbecha nidgalta haya memale mina kiyor. If it spilled or if it was left uncovered overnight, they would get more water out of the kiyor. Because in general, shayayin v'amayim megulin sulin legabe mizbeach. The Gemara will explain why that is. That generally uncovered wine or uncovered water that were left that way overnight are puzzle for the mizbeach. We'll see more on why that is in a little while.
Let me ask you also with snakes. With a snake could come in and put
Yeah,
venom
it's going
in
with the
there?
Gemara. You remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a snake, right?
Is the kiyor the one that were washing their hands? And
Yeah, the laver, right?
Nechoshet, kiyor nechoshet. Okay?
Nachon. The Gemara is going to explain that also. If they could get it from the kiyor, why don't they just always get it from the kiyor? They have to go down to the shiloach. Try to understand, like, why is that? So the different Rishonim have different, and Achronim different ideas. We'll see. Maybe if we get there, we can see a Cheshek Shlomo on this. That's his question about this this issue. Okay. Okay. Let's see a few things. A little bit, from one to the other. If you look at Rashi, first of all, back on page 48a. Mina Shiloach, we saw that one. Right? So we have for the keves, it's Revi'id Hayin. What's Revi'id Hayin? That's Loshat Lugin. So the Chachamim thinks it's the same thing, same quantity of water as there is for wine. Shar Hamayim, Echid Mishari Azar Nikar Kain, Hashem Shemachnisi Bot Sluchet Shamayim, Shenizach B'Chag. As I explained it, it's a gate that's right next to the ramp on the south side of the Beit HaMikdash compound. Taku v'hariu, mishum simcha, dichtivu sha'avtem hamayim b'sason. That should be joy when you draw the water. We'll see that in the Gemara shortly. Allah b'kevesh, shaya b'droma shel mizbeach, as described. Upanali smolo, turn to the left. Shenaz chasim, nasim b'keren ma'aravi dromit, the west-south, we would call it southwest corner. Ponali smolo here rishona, right? And Masachet Zvachim Yalif Lamikrai Beparak Kadshe Kadashim. It's learned from Masachet Zvachim. Okay, from a pasuk. Look there in Parak Kadshe Kadashim explains how we learned that. Generally, when people would go up in the mizbeach, they would turn to the right, and they would always keep their face facing the inside of the mizbeach. So they would move in a counter. If you're looking at it from the bird's eye view, counterclockwise, but always going to the right because they're always facing the inside of the mizbeach. And that way they'd make a sivuv, a circle. It was the on and the off. So you'd always be going around in that way. For Nisuch Hamayim, they would, and for Nisuch Hayayin for that matter, that Kohen, whoever that was in charge of that, would veer to the left automatically. Do it and go back. We'll see that in the Gemara shortly as well.
Rabbi,
Tosfot on the-
is the platform that they were going up, the kevesh, the same one that appears in Sof Parshat Yitro, Shelo Ta'aleh B'mazeh? The Kohen used it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time
Should be
he
stairs, should be a ramp. Right. That's the one. Yep. Well said. Yeah. Although the one in the Beit HaMikdash was bigger, taller, bigger, etc. Yeah. I mean, it's the scale. It's bigger. The Tosfot on the bottom here on Mem Chadamid Aleph ask, wait a second, how come we're not using the principle of Malin B'Kodesh Vein Maridin? After all, Malin B'Kodesh V'lo Maridin means you go up in area levels not only of sanctity but of beauty, of fanciness. Call it what you will. So Tema D'Tana Menachot Perak Shtei Alechem Shtei Shulchan Hayu Ba'ulam Echad Shel Kesef Echad Shel Zahav Al Shel Kesef Notin Lechem Apanim V'Knisato Al Shel Zahav B'Yitziato Shemayim B'Kodesh V'lo Maridin, meaning the Lechem Apanim was the showbread that was going to go on the Shulchan HaZahav inside the Heichal. So there were two on the Ulam, which is the antechamber of the Beit HaMikdash in the building. But the antechamber going into the sanctuary itself, there were two tables of silver and of gold. The bread that was not yet put on the Shulchan was going to be left on the silver table. But once it went on the Shulchan, when they brought it off, because they were always switching it every Shabbat, when it came off, you couldn't put it back on a silver plate, a silver table, and they put it on the gold table. So afilu silkuhu me'al shulchan hazav behechal lo yichom lohorido u'lonichom b'shel kesef v'im kein hacha shayu mamalim b'tziluchit shel zav he'achim minasim misfalim shel kesef. How are they pouring from golden vessels into silver vessels? V'chitenu b'tzluchit she'ena mekudashet hayu mamalim lohi. Now, if you're going to tell me that it was a tzluchit, meaning a vessel that was not mekudashet, it wasn't one of the clay sharid, that's not true. The gabe chavit, with regard to the barrel, if it's Erev Shabbos, need malam Erev Shabbat, katane matniti she'enu mekudashet. Why did I have to tell you at the end of the Mishnah that if it's Erev Shabbat, they would fill up a golden barrel, which is not mekudashet, to tell you that the rest of the week, the rest of the days of Sukkot, it was a vessel that was mekudashet. Can the first time of the Gemara about tzluchit shayim malim bechol haitim mekudashet, but the one they were using in the weekdays certainly was sanctified. V'yesh lomar, answer the Bali Tosfot, the sfalim hayu kvuim besid v'lo kelim ninhu. They were attached to the Mizbeach. They're fused to it with plaster. And therefore, they're not really kalim. They look like bowls, but they're not really. They're actually part of the Mizbeach. The nechshavin kegufo shel Mizbeach. They're part of the body of it. V'harei heim kilavona shahayim bazichin shel zav maktirin ala Mizbeach. It's like the spoon of the lavona that was in the bazichin of zav, which is the this long spoon, right? That had the lavona in it, the frankincense, and then once a week they would take it off and put it on the mizbeach to maktir it. So how did they do that? From gold down to the regular mizbeach? No, because the point is the mizbeach is fused to the ground. These sefalim are fused to the ground. Therefore, it's not a violation of malin b'kodesh v'lo maridin. Contrast that with the view of other Rishonim, Rashi Udi Imei. Next page, top Rashi, where it sounds like they were not necessarily attached to the Mizbeach itself. They were just sort of sitting there, the two bowls. And Rashi's view is, Kimin Shnei Chotamin Daki means Chotam Echad B'Seifel, V'Nekev Echad B'Chotamo. So sticking out of the bottom of each of the two bowls was what looked, to all appearances from outside, looked like a nose. It was a spigot, essentially. So it looked like a nose protruding, and it had a hole on the bottom of the bowl. I would say the bottom being the bottom, but just not at the bottom, but on the rim right before it got to the bottom. So that it was, right, the bowl is, let's say, angled like this. The liquid goes in. There's a spigot sticking out of the side, which looks like a nose. And the liquid, as it flows into the bowl, drains out of this spigot. Where does it drain? For Rashi, he explains it here, right? V'hakohen, second line in Rashi, 48b. V'hakohen ma'ara b'fi hasfalim, v'anesachim mikalchin v'yordin derech hachotamin al gav hamizbeach. They would flow down out of their respective bowls onto the roof of the Mizbeach. Uva Mizbeach haya nekev shebo hamayim v'ayayin yordin lashitin shel Mizbeach shayu amukin v'chalulim meod. We're going to talk about the shitin later on. We're not there right now. It's going to be on the next page, not yet. But it would, according to Rashi, come out of the bowls, land on the roof of the Mizbeach, and then the two liquids presumably would intermingle and fall into a pipe called the shitin. Shitin is plural. How come it's plural? Because there was more than one of the shitin related to the Mizbeach. Another one's related to where on the side down below, also southwest corner, there were also other kinds of pipes. So in the aggregate, they were called shitin. That's Rashi's view. In other words, what's the function of the bowl, which is not attached to the Mizbeach per se? It's to channel the flow of the liquid so that when you have two people pouring, why do you need the bowl? Just pour it straight onto the Mizbeach. Why do you pour it straight in the hole? The point was so that somehow in pouring it into these bowls, it would channel and direct the flow. So presumably it would come down onto the Mizbeach and the two liquids would intermingle, number one. Number two, and that's the point with the slits, it would flow at a different rate so that they would both finish at the same time. We're going to see that in the next Rashi. Huh?
Serve like a funnel.
Like a funnel. But as we'll see momentarily, since the wine is thicker than the water, it has a different flow rate.
But what would fall on?
Yeah.
Right.
It would fall onto the Mizbeach. Can you explain that?
Yeah, the Mizbeach is flat, and the Nisuch Hamayim, the Nisuch Hayayin, as the case may be, was about pouring wine onto the Mizbeach. But it's not as we thought, maybe pour the wine, Stam, pour it like that.
But
It was.
it fell on the Mizbeach.
It fell into a bowl. That was the point. And the bowl had a spigot at the bottom.
They wanted the shitin.
Yeah. But it came out of the bowl. For Rashi, it's a three-step. Into the bowl, from the bowl, out of the bowl, onto the Mizbeach, and then trickling from the Mizbeach into this pipe, which goes deep, deep, deep into the ground, which is right on the Mizbeach. Three-step. Huh? Was what slope? The Mizbeach?
Yeah.
So according to, I don't remember who said it. Yeah, so the point is that there's some kind of maybe a little channel that's in the Mizbeach. It's not clear to me. There is certainly a channel down below where the blood would go. They have to pour dam. So on the corner, so there were little channels that went, sort of, as you would imagine, a channel, and then it would go down into the pipe. Here, it's not clear to me if there was a channel or not. Tosfot did not like what Rashi had to say here. Sorry, let's learn one more Rashi. I'm sorry. Two more Rashis. I'm sorry. Echad me'uvev, echad dak. Echad minikavim me'uvesh oto shel yayin. The one that was a thicker hole, meaning it was wider, was for the wine. Ve'echad dak, the one that was narrower, was for the water. Why? The wine was thicker than the water. Sheyu shneim kalim ke'echad. They should finish at the same time. Kinu afarish b'gemara shamayim memarim. Let's say leficha tzarich sheha nekev dak, smaller aperture in its spigot, so that the two liquids would finish at the same time. Tosfot did not like what Rashi wrote here. Remember that we already just saw the Tosfot that said that the Sfalim were first of all attached to the Mizbeach. But look at Tosfot here. Perish Bekuntras, I'm on the top corner one, obviously. Yeah. Perish Bekuntras chotam echad b'seifel, v'nakev echad b'chotamo, v'kohen me'are, the Kohen would be pouring befi hasfalim. That's a Hagoda Bach. Take out the word mayim.
Yeah.
The Hagoda Bach says take out the word mayim. See there's a little aleph there? Hagoda Bach says delete the word mayim. Tevat mayim nimchak. Says vakoin ma'are befi hasfalim vas nisachim mikalchin. They drip down derech hachotamin through those noses al gabe hamizbeach. Uva mizbeach haya nekev. There was a hole in the mizbeach. Shbo mayim v'ayin yordin lashitin shel mizbeach. Shehayu chalulin meod v'amukin. So it's basically a quote of Rashi. Say Tosfot v'zu tema gedola. This is a really big question on Rashi. Say the Bali Tosfot minayin local ota inyan shemechotam shel hasfarlim mekalecha gag hamizbeach umisham lanekav hamizbeach umisham lashitin. What's with the three steps? From the nose of the seifel, it's going to go on to the gag hamizbeach. From there into a hole, and from there to the shitin? No. Dilma hu demenakev hasfalim, right? Yordin minakev hasfalim, excuse me. Shlashitin kamin shnei nikve hachotam velo shehaya bolet kamin chotam ki hay detan masachet midot. I will get to that in a minute. The proof. What does Tosfot say? There's two bowls. The bowls are fused to the mizbeach, Each one has a slit. And the reason why it's called shitin is because each one has a separate pipe. They pour into one. You know where the hole is? At the bottom. That's what it means. Like a chotam doesn't mean it's like a nose. It's sticking out of the side. It means that there was a slit, like nostrils. There's a slit in each bowl. Pour in the bowl. It goes to the bottom of the bowl and it drains through the drain at the bottom, like the bottom of a sink. But it's going to the shitin. Why is it plural? Because there's more than one of the pipes.
So we
Shitin.
should think it doesn't go on the mizbeach, it goes right into.
It goes in the mizbeach, on the mizbeach, in the mizbeach. What's on the mizbeach? On a part of the mizbeach called the seifel. Tosaf's point was it's not an extraneous object you put down. It's not a bowl with a little spigot on it. It's a part of the mizbeach. They build a mizbeach and they attach these bowls. Yeah.
So is there one of the sheeting for wine and the sheeting for water and they don't mix together?
It sounds that way.
It's, yeah,
It sounds that way. Yes.
makes sense, but
Right. Rashi thinks they're going to mix and then they're going to go down. Tosfot doesn't seem that way. I mean, I'm reading to you. Dilma huda minakev hasfalim yordim lashitin. Kimin shnei nikve achotam. I mean, maybe they connect underground. I don't know. But the point is that there's two bowls. Each one has a slit, and you pour the wine on the water at the same time, and they both go down. And the hole for the wine is a wider hole because it's thicker. So the two liquids will go down exactly the same rate and they finish at the same time. Maybe they're mixing in the shitin. I guess they must be. Right?
Question.
As the proof. What? Sorry.
I have a question.
Please.
We said previously in the Mishnah that if he mixed the sides, yatsa, but then the flow of those two liquids won't be the same. So I don't think it was an important.
Okay. Yeah. You might be right. Probably in the sheetin they all mix. But at least the sheetin, the pipes, doesn't say there's two different pipes, two different holes in the mizbeach. And the bowl is not a bowl. It looks like a bowl, but it's really part of the mizbeach halachically. So you're pouring it on the mizbeach, but part of the mizbeach is flat, and part of it, exactly what George's question was before. If you just pour it stam on the gog, it's going to make a mess. So even if you pour it in two bowls and there's two little noses that was calling spigots or noses sticking out, and they're going to come out onto the mizbeach, so isn't it also going to go everywhere? So I'm surmising for Rashi, and you'll see now Tosfot quotes this idea, but he doesn't want to admit to Rashi's idea. He had his idea, but he says the proof is ki hoyd is not mesechet midot gabe damim with regard to the blood. Over kerem aravi dromid hayu shnei nekavim kemin shnei chotamin dakin shehadamim nitanin al yisod ma'aravid by yisod dromid. So the yisod, which is the base of the mizbeach, is a lip. It's like a ledge sticking out on the bottom, and on the south side and on the west side. So there was a hole in the one and a hole in the other. There was a little channel called an ama, not ama, but ama, like a channel. V'shema, right? Kimin blitat chotam haya asui al hanekev shlo yipol alav davar lesotmo. That's right. Tosfot added something there. And, we'll get there in a sec. But when it comes to the blood, at the base, not up the ramp. Let's say you didn't go up the ramp, but you moved to the left of the ramp and you just stayed on the ground level. That's right. They would go around there. They have to pour blood out on the side of the mizbech. There were two holes, one on the south and one on the west side. And they would go down both bloods into a channel and mix and intermingle there, and then go down also after that. So, what? I know. I'm sorry. I actually was casting about. I have in my house. Yeah, we have it somewhere. I have in my house the wasn't in the Mishkan like this. What did they do in the Mishkan? Nisuch Hamayim. They didn't have shitin. It's Beit Mikdash. Bait Rishon. Not sure. Bait Sheni. This was definitely in Bait Sheni. They had this, right? Bait Rishon. I'm not exactly sure what they did. I don't have pictures. I don't know. Bait Sheni don't have pictures either, but I have in the book by Rabbi Menachem Makover, his excellent book on Bait Sheni. So he has about the Matan Damim when he has pictures. He does not have one for the Nisuch Hamayim. And in his pictures, even they're as amazing as they are, they're missing the two sfalim, except in the one diagram wants to show it, but all the other pictures of the mizbeach, they seem to be missing. I don't know. But the Tosfot just add at the end, maybe there was like some kind of a quote unquote nose that was upon the hole so that things wouldn't get into it. So it was like a drain cover. So in other words, on these two bowls, maybe the chotam being referenced here He thinks chotam doesn't mean literally a nose, it means a little nostril. So the little aperture had to be there. But he says maybe chotam means that on top of the aperture, maybe there was like an overhang inside each of the bowls, so that when leaves, whatever would fall down, nothing would block it. Maybe.
He's all the way at the top of the ramp.
Yeah.
And he goes to the left.
Yeah. He pours it and he goes back where he came from. What are we going to see in Gemara now?
How far was it away from the corner?
It was at the corner.
Yeah, right at the corner. And Toso said it was permanent.
Exactly.
So
Rashi
he
thinks
walked
it's movable.
around, obviously,
Had to walk around it. It was big enough that it was in the corner, but there was still room behind it that you could still walk behind it. Without, is it an art scroll? I don't know.
No, but this is in,
This is our.
Jeff, you trying to speak? I don't hear you.
Yeah,
Oh, Jeff
Rabbi
shows the picture.
Archibald has it.
Hold on. Stay right there. We got you. Oh, wow. The wine was poured into the more easterly of the two bowls that were on the top of the olive. For the first time in our Sears history, the people on Zoom are getting a much better view than the people in person. If I knew how to simulcast, I'd put it on the screen. Thank you. This is super helpful. Yeah, right. And you have the wine was poured in more easterly on the top of the altar. Right. Okay. I got it. That's great. Thank you. And it's actually at the corner. Shkoach. That's very helpful. Okay. What book is that? Is that the Gemara?
No, it's in the Chumash.
The Chumash.
You know, the newer one.
Great. That's beautiful. Oh, the newer Chumash is amazing. In the back, right? In the back, those pictures.
Yep, in back. Yeah.
Yeah. The back of the new stone Chumash, new, in the last 5 years. There are all these glossy pictures that are drawn of things in the Mishkan and Korban. It's really well done. Excellent. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay. Where are we? Let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to see if we should go into the Gemara before we do the last pieces of Tosfot. Yeah, let's see Rashi on the Mishnah. We didn't finish, and there's more to see here. The narrow lines in Rashi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, narrow lines of Rashi. Ma'ravo Shomayim Mizrach Shel Yain Hasfalim Netunim Eitzel HaKeren Zeh Lifnei Zeh Smuchin Zeh Zeh Echad L'Tzad Ma'arav Echad Lifnim Heimanu Dahanim Mizrach. We just saw the picture on the screen. Others, I'm sure you looked it up in your own art scroll over there, right? There's two bowls and they're lined up. One is really at the corner, closest to the building of the Beit HaMikdash. The other one is a little farther away, right next to it, a little farther to the east of it. Rabbi Yehuda claims that it's a different quantity and a different number of days. Betarte plige ashlosha lugin kai v'ashiva de ka'amar Tanakama. Those two things. The Tanakama said 3 lugin. He says 1. 7 days. He says 8. V'ata Rabbi Yehuda l'meimar af b'shmini menaschim. Even on the 8th day, you're going to do Nisuch Hamayim. Hagberet yadcha shniras titan Hamayim. We read that one already. Skip because we did it. We don't have time. Sheina mekudashet lo nitchancha la'avodat hamizbeach shtei kedusha. L'klei sharet. It was never used for the avoda, and therefore it's not considered klei sharet. The kaimalan, because we learn in the Gemara in Yuma, we learned it together. Kol hakelim she'asa Moshe mishichatan mikadashtan. When Moshe Rabbeinu made the klei sharet, the vessels to be used in the mikdash, he poured oil over them. That anointing was what consecrated them. However, mikan ve'elach, every later generation, avodatan mechanachtan. When you use them, that's what inaugurates them. You inaugurate them for service by pressing them into service. And the Gemara will explain why specifically it had to be a non-consecrated vessel. Hayamamale mina kiyor, says Rashi, mina maim shebetocha kiyor, in the laver. Umea kiyor afisha nimshach v'hukdash l'klei sharet. Even though the kiyor was already given its inauguration by Moshe Rabbeinu, usually Sharet Umikdash, right? Umikadesh Meimav, excuse me. No, sorry. Shanim Shach v'Hukdash the Klei Sharet Umikdash Meimav Einif Salin Belina Shayu Mishakin Oto Mi Be'erev Bebor. We learned this also. Here it is. Kida Amar B'Seder Yoma. They had a way of lowering the water source of the laver into something in the ground, which connected it to a well that was inside. So it wasn't megula because it was underground. It was submerged. Af hu asa muchne lakior. This was on the list, I think, of people who were Zachor Latov. Can't remember his name, but remember, I don't know if you remember this. There was a list of people, groups of people who were Zachor Latov, Nicanor Zachor Latov, and the people from this group are Zachor Latov, right? And then there was a group of people, Shem Sham Yirkov. They wanted to keep business in the family, so they didn't want to give out the recipe for this or for that, right? And they were like stingy with it. So there was one of the people described, Zachor Latov, made a pulley system, a crank, a pulley system for the well of the kior. It was a muchni la kior. So mishakin b'muchni la kior shlo yumeimav nifsan belina. We have an idea. You can't leave it out. Be puzzle for lina. If it went overnight without being covered properly. Shanu mai megulin Rashi nidgala hanutami mamali mina kior. Right. The issue there is the same reason you would fill it from the kior. V'lemanasech mehen lefisha yain v'amayim megulin psulin legabe mizbeach. We're worried about it being puzzle on the mizbeach. Why? The chayshin and shema shatim hen nachash. Maybe a snake came and drank from it. Va'eres me'urav bahen, and the poison got mixed in. V'nimsa she'ena menasech mayim kashir. Because the poison is filling up the shear. I don't personally understand this so much. Maybe it was just that precise. And how many snakes are running around? I think it was a halacha. It was a halacha that we don't want to have, megula. But Tosfot have another idea about the snake. Tosfot, so yain v'mayim megulin. Look at Tosfot. Shema shatim ehen nachas ve'eres me'ur b'mayim. V'nimtzit is just quoting Rashi. She'ena menasech a mayim kashir. Sharia eres maslim shiurin kachper b'kuntras. But Tosfot another idea. V'itachein perizeh l'may desalka daite me'ikara b'gemara deparich v'nav rinhu b'misanenet. Right? There's later on in the Gemara, it's going to say, if you're concerned about the poison, why don't you filter the water somehow? Avalafia maskana, in the conclusion of the Gemara, in the discussion about my megulin, mefarshin mishum hakriveu nalafechatecha, which is a cynical line from the Navi, go give it to your governor. Meaning, you have a lame offering, don't give it to me, says Hashem, go give it to your governor. Would your governor accept an offering with a leg missing, where it has blemishes? Your governor wouldn't accept it. So you bring it to Hashem, Chalila. So you're going to bring this water that you left open overnight that you wouldn't drink from because you're worried about poisons, etc. So that's fine to bring to Hashem. Forget it. Give it to your governor. That's the expression. It's harsh language, but the point is, Tosfot don't think it's an issue of the shear of the water. They think it's an issue of the poison in the water. Okay, I had so many good intentions that we're going to actually get to the Gemara and we're going to finish the page. We'll have to come back next week, friends. Next Monday night in Health and Happiness, we'll begin the Gemara. Some very strange parts of the Gemara coming up. If that doesn't bring you back, I don't know what will. Have a great rest of the week. Sei gesund. We'll meet again, Health and Happiness next week. Call 2.